What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tactical Foul. I'm Kyle Grew, as always. Today, we have an absolute banger of a guest. He is a former West Ham graduate. He played professionally, championship, League One, all over England for the better part of, I covered 3 decades, starting in the 90s, ended in the early 2010s, playing for clubs such as Shrewsbury Town, Brighton, Wycombe Wanderers, and Barnet, among a few. He's also forlayed that into a career into coaching. Has had some success early on as a pretty young coach as well. Most recently as the manager of Barnet. Please welcome Darren Currie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Obviously, this is kind of the wonder of social media, right? Like, um, it's not. I joined a group just for coaching and different things like that. All of a sudden, you kind of pop in, and then I'm kind of looking at, and obviously being from England, I'll be honest, like, I don't, I can't know every single player that there is, but
Mm.
obviously people took notice to you joining the group, and I'm like, oh, let's look into this, and there you were, and I could see everything about you, and just the way you're interacting with everyone that was kind of like chatting with you, I was like, oh, this guy seems very down to earth and willing to chat, and I was like, I gotta have him on because I mean he's got a lot to offer, and I imagine he's going to be a good conversation. So that's the beauty of social media, right? You can connect with people from wherever and all walks of life.
Listen, it all come about from being on LinkedIn, and there's many social platforms, isn't there? So
Yeah,
LinkedIn is one of them. I had someone on there say, "Would I like to join this group?" And at the minute, where I've obviously I left Barnet in August and just waiting for my next opportunity. You have to, especially under these sort of current guidelines of being in lockdown, you have to make it the most of as many platforms as you can. And I joined the group, and there's one or two people in there that I'm very familiar with, and obviously, like yourself, one or two people. This is the first time we've ever seen each other and had a chat. But the beauty for me, like you say, with social media, if you use it to your advantage, you can talk to anyone across the planet, and especially something as global as football. You can pick up the phone or Zoom anyone from anywhere in the world,
yeah,
and like we've spoke for 20 minutes before we've even started on the record button, haven't we? So it's talking football and talking with people across the world. Why not? What have you got to lose from making friends and having football conversations? And that's what I'm about. Football's been my life, so it's a pleasure to meet you, and obviously the guys that tune into you. But joining the group, there's been a lot of nice people in there making me feel welcome, and that's what it's about.
no, absolutely. I mean that's kind of the one of the special things I think you see with the game that we both love, right? Like it's a big group. There's a lot of people that love it, but it's very welcoming, right? Like I think you see it. Um, like we talk a lot on here about like pickup games and pickup culture and different things like that. I think that's one example of like kind of before social media, and it's kind of still lived on where like you can get just random people that are going to the park or anything like that, and they'll just hop into a game because they share a common thread of loving the game of football. And it's kind of, and now we can just, now that technology is the way it is, we can also do that virtually as well. So I think it's an amazing thing. Obviously, social media has its downsides, but like you said, if it's used properly, it can. There's infinite possibilities to it. So
Do you know what, Carl? And obviously, having most recently been a manager for 18 months, and I see the power of social media. And I know I've got many friends in football that, they get into a particular position at a football club, and then they come away from your Twitter and your Instagram because obviously there's the downside to it is if the result don't go well or your team don't go place a good, you get a barrage of criticism, and when I became a manager, I thought to myself, I don't want to shut down that sort of social part of
yeah,
my life because of football. If you want to be someone that takes the pat on the back when it goes well, you have to be someone that rides with it rough as well. And it was, listen, don't get me wrong, we lost one or two games along the way, I mean, we had a great time for 18 months,
Yeah.
more positives than negatives. But there were some difficult periods where you lose a game and you wake up on a Sunday morning and you're kind of looking at your Twitter through one eye, and you've got 10 messages, 20 messages, whatever it is, and people, and for me, you get your people that constructively criticize and have a viewpoint or an opinion on what they've watched the day before, or you get the people that just, I feel like they just want to attack you, which
Yeah.
is, listen, that's how they choose to,
Mm.
that's the emotion of the game.
Yeah.
But I interacted with the fans, especially at Barnet where I played as well, so I knew I had
Right.
a good relationship with the people there, so I didn't mind interacting with them. It wasn't always pleasant, and it was probably harder for my family to take at times,
Yeah.
because in particular my brother, who's a little bit younger than me but very protective, um, but like I had to keep reminding him, they'll be the first people that if we win next week, they want to thumbs up and well done, and
Mm.
so that's the game. But some people can overstep the mark, but it's that's part of people having an opinion because everyone has an opinion on football.
Oh, and now and it's even and their opinion can be seen by everybody, like we said. Now, I guess that's something I wonder is obviously we talked about it at the start of your career in the '90s and then through the 2000s. Social media is not something that you really obviously at the like near the end of your career it became more prevalent. But is that something you think you missed out on, or is it something you're happy that you missed out on being like a player and dealing with social media?
I mean, I would say I've missed out on it
Okay.
because I like to interact with fans,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I was I was when I played football, I know it was my job, and I know there's the business side to it, and I know the importance of winning and 3 points. But let me tell you, 99% of the time I went on the pitch, I was just happy because I love football the way
Yeah.
I do. So my interaction with fans, even as a player, was good. I used to have funny highlights in my hair and
I
different
I've
hairstyles, and
seen the pictures.
you know, and I'd get the fans give me a bit of grief, and I'd give them a bit back,
Yeah.
and it's entertainment as well.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that side of it, and I wouldn't have a problem after the game going in the bar and mingling amongst fans, having a beer and talking about the game, and people, and that's where it's changed. Now people want to be on the keyboards, don't they?
Yeah.
Back in the day, they don't mind three or four of them coming straight up to you in the bar, in
Yeah.
your face, going, "What happened today? And what about this?" And then so it's just a different version of what went on. It
That's
was so I would say I more missed out on it because I've always interacted with fans anyway.
that's fair. Before we get too much into your career and different things like that, I want to kind of I want myself obviously, but then I want everybody else to kind of get to know you a little bit. So I want to just go all the way back and just like where it all started for you. Obviously, um, doing this, you obviously have some pretty strong familial ties to the game. But where did football really start for you, and like you start to like really because like you said you love the game, and so where did that start for you?
Are you on about even as a child, like
Oh
playing?
yeah, oh yeah.
Oh right, okay. Well, my dad played in non-league football in England, so he played at the top end of non-league football for many years.
Yep.
And my uncle, so my dad's brother, played for England, and in England he's quite a well-known name for the player he was and the teams he represented. Um, so my dad played. Now I went on to coach and play for Dagenham and Redbridge at the very back end of my
Yep.
playing days. But my dad actually played for Dagenham in the 70s,
Oh wow.
and he played in the 1977 trophy final. And so I was 2.5. And there's photos of me in my Dagenham kit with a ball. And so I can take you right back to when I literally could start walking, and all my photos as a child is with a ball at my feet.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's run in the blood a little bit with my dad and my uncle. Um, but it's been an obsession, and I mean a serious obsession of mine. Not just I like it. I mean, my life was football as a child, and I played for local Sunday morning teams. I played for my school, my county, my borough. You know, there weren't enough days in the week for the teams that I wanted to represent, and you know that's the sort of that was the natural path as a child in England, and I played, you know, maybe under 10s, under 11s for Watford, and then I went to Chelsea for a bit, and you know you have to deal with the setbacks and the knockbacks and what comes your way. But it was eventually when I got to 15. Now in England, when you get to 15, that's quite a crucial period
Okay.
because that's when the pro clubs start handing out scholarships, and it was
Right.
called YTS when I was at that age, and I was playing for one of my local teams, and West Ham had a scout there, and they spotted me, and I went into West Ham, and I had a couple of games for them, and that's when I was handed my scholarship, or YTS as it was in them days, and that's the first real step that you take as a child in England. You can play in the younger age groups, and you can be a schoolboy, but it's kind of you're still trying to find your way and
Right.
create your path. But once you actually get to excuse me, once I got to West Ham as a YTS, I had then 2 years to become to do enough to prove myself to become a professional footballer. So them 2 years from sort of 16 to 18 are the crucial years. And if I give you an example, there was 9 players in my year group. So you have first and second years. And when I become a second year, there was 9 second years. And in the first year, there was maybe another 9 or 10 then. So there's your squad of 18,
Right.
19. But as a second year, there was 9 of us. And when it come to handing out professional contracts, there was only 2 of us out of the 9 that got professional contracts. And I was fortunate enough to be one of them
Wow.
too. So, you know, you work all them years as a child for that moment, and then there I am as a little skinny little 18-year-old boy, and or 18, yeah, and I signed my professional contract at West Ham, and then now it's the next step you take to try and break into their first team and so on. But you know, as a child, from the first minute I could start walking, it was just an obsession of mine. Everything was about football. Get home from school, meet all your mates in the local park, and put a few coats down, pick 2 teams, and crack on until the sun goes down. And that was my life.
So and that is absolutely amazing, and it's like it's fun to hear like that's how it is because it doesn't sound like there's ever really like a point where like it was too much. It was almost points where it wasn't enough. Like you couldn't get enough hours in the day to keep playing. Where like it's kind of been a topic we've talked about here, in especially like the youth game. Like the kids that play at really high level youth levels, they make a lot of sacrifices, whether it's time, whatever, just like kind of doing normal kid things. And obviously, you're going to be a professional. There's obviously stresses that come with that, expectations. What kind of sacrifices do you think have to be made when you're a younger kid wanting to be a professional, trying to break in? Maybe it is those 15 to 17, 18 year olds. Like, what kind of sacrifices do you think have to be made for that to happen?
Listen, if I base it just purely on my own story,
Yeah.
I mean, I got to a point. So I was two of 9 people that got offered a professional
Right.
opportunity. Now, if I didn't get a professional contract, then who knows who knows where my path would have gone. It's obviously who knows.
Right.
But when you talk about sacrifice, where I'm not someone who lives with regret, but if I look back and now I'm a dad and I've got some children, I I, I put all my eggs into the football
Yeah.
basket. I didn't particularly try hard at school, and I didn't like anything else. My
Right.
whole world was football. So if that had come crashing down at any point, who knows what could have happened? Thankfully, it never. But I, we all had the dream as a kid, and my sacrifice, if you want to call it sacrifice, was, it's very easy at sort of 14 and beyond to get caught up with your mates who might want to have a little drink or have
Yeah.
a fag or cigarette or and but for me it was just I was just obsessed and focused on becoming a footballer. So it was all I wanted to do was rest and practice. And so in terms of sacrifice, I sacrificed maybe a lot of friendships, because I was so obsessed with football. Maybe I should have, in fact, I definitely should have tried a bit harder at school and had a plan B in place.
Yeah.
But I was so confident that plan A would work. And listen, it did in the end,
Yeah.
and I was fortunate, but it could have easily gone the other way. So sacrifice is part of any success story.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to do well in something, ultimately you have to prepare right, you have to practice, you have to be obsessed with it, you have to be focused on it. And I mean, look, you have to be talented and hardworking, but if you put your mind to it and you practice hard enough, there's a very good chance you'll be successful with it.
And obviously, like you said, going off your story, and obviously you're proof that it does work out, right? So, um, talking kind of want to talk about West Ham. Obviously, there's a lot of academies all around England. West Ham is a pretty big one in terms of England. They've obviously in the last couple decades have produced a lot of big name players and different things like that. Do you think that the pressure on you being in the West Ham Academy or just being in a Premier League, like a top end academy, was that much higher than if you were to say be in an academy of a championship level team or lower?
I'm not sure. See, I'm the type of person, Carl, that I don't link pressure with football. It's not
Okay,
because I love it the way I do.
absolutely,
I don't ever see playing football as pressure. Now, don't get me wrong. There is pressure.
of
You
course,
have to do well. You have to try and win. You have to do certain things on the pitch to keep being selected. And so, but it's not like I'm one of these that come home and I bite my nails and I'm like, oh
yeah,
my god, So it's not pressure in that respect. The pressure comes from, I love this game and I want to be successful.
yeah,
So what I would say about different levels of academies is obviously when you're in somewhere like where I was at West Ham, and they were in the top division, the the chances of you getting an opportunity are probably smaller because the standard is so high. So although I never broke through to the first team, there was one or two whispers that I was very very close on occasion. I never I never got to make my debut, so I obviously never done enough at West Ham to warrant that opportunity
right,
within their first team. But if I'd have been maybe Championship or League One, I might have broke through because the standard's a little bit different, isn't it?
yeah,
So, but having said that, West Ham, the opportunity come around for me to go out on loan, and I went out on loan as a young boy, and then now you're talking. I've got the serious bug now because I've made my league debut.
yeah,
I've played football on Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock kickoff, which is which is my world over here.
yeah,
Um, and now I've got the bug. I never want to let it go. So I eventually went back to West Ham. Didn't quite make the breakthrough, in all fairness. One or two of my close friends did. Good luck to them, done brilliant, had great careers. But it didn't quite happen for me. And although West Ham wanted to keep me and offer me a new contract, I'd had the taste of Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And now I had that, I needed more of it. So I, it, I'm gutted I never had the chance to play in West Ham's first team, but then I wouldn't change the path that I took because,
sure,
like I say, I don't live with regrets. But it's all about when you're a young person over here, if you're fortunate enough to be in a position where you get offered a West Ham or you get offered a Ipswich Town, for example, that are at different levels. Although you want the stigma and you want the badge of the Premier League club on your chest, you've got to be smart enough to look at your pathway and go, am I going to get in at West Ham or am I going to get in at Ipswich or Charlton or something like that, you
Yeah.
know? And if you can be that level-headed and confident in your ability to take that opportunity, get into a Charlton or an Ipswich first team, prove yourself, then you'll get that opportunity to step up. And this is an issue that we have over at the minute. We have a lot of young players that are within the Premier League academies that, for me, sit quite comfortable in that nice environment.
Yeah.
They're probably picking up a nice salary, but they might be 21, 22, and they've got maybe 5, 6 games to their name. That's it.
Right.
Once I got the bug at 18 of playing, that was it. By the time I was 22, I'd probably played 150, 175 games, and but that was me. So it's different pathways for different players, but that's my story from my youth.
Um, so before we move on a little bit, I obviously we talked about like the big players and different things like that, and you've been all over the place when it comes to just playing and different things. So like you've got to see all kinds of different players. Were there when you were coming up, whether it was in the first team, in your youth teams, whatever it was, were there any players around you that kind of just wowed you, and kind of either motivated you or maybe you kind of emulated a little bit.
Well, I certainly growing up, like the guys that were on the telly at the time. My uncle was on the telly
Of
and a
course.
big name through my childhood, so I was obviously a fan of him. But Glenn Hoddle was my idol growing up. Wonderful, wonderful player, obviously. And then I got to sort of a little bit older, and it was the likes of Zidane. Obviously, they're world
Can't
stars, but
can't beat that.
I've always liked your sort of number tens, your entertainers, your people that can play football and do that something different. Like Gascoigne and people like Thierry Henry. These people that can do things that make you sort of, it's the wow factor, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like that. I like the entertainment side of football as much as the of everything else that goes with it. So and when I was a youth team player at West Ham, a year or two below me was when Joe Cole was coming through and Rio Ferdinand and Frank Lampard.
Those-
Now, three very different players.
yeah.
Rio, obviously a wonderful defender and a very composed player. Frank Lampard, who went on to be a goal machine, and Joe Cole, who could do that something that not many
Yeah.
players
Yeah.
can do. So these types of players were coming up behind me in the youth ranks at West Ham, and that West Ham had a bit of a tradition and still do of being able to create some and have a good academy and
Yeah.
good pathway for young players. Like I said, just unfortunate I never made that debut, but that entertaining type player is the one that I will always tune into.
Is there anybody now like watching, when you're just watching football that that does that for you, that number 10, or just someone that does that little bit special from any level? It can be from anywhere around the world though.
Yeah, listen, I watch football from all over the world, so there's it goes without saying your sort of Ronaldo's and Messi's,
Of course.
And before we get into that debate, I'm on the Messi team personally. He listen,
I'm
my argument.
I'm
Oh,
biased. I'm biased. I get it, and I'm not really gonna argue the point, but I'm gonna just say Ronaldo just because I'm a United fan.
of course, but listen. How can you? It's splitting hairs, isn't it?
Oh, there's
Between
no
how
point.
can it's my argument is that Ronaldo is an absolute goal machine,
Yeah.
which he is, but Messi is a goal machine, but also does things that no one else can do.
No, there's little doubt. I mean, Messi. I mean, he has gifts that nobody else has probably ever had, and yeah, there's a reason. I mean, but that's the greatest thing about those two is like we got to see these two play at the exact same time. I don't think you've ever seen two players at this level playing at the same time. It's
Yeah,
it's it's
unbelievable.
remarkable for sure.
But they're the obvious names at the minute. But when I look at like Liverpool's front three, all very different type players, but brilliant players. I happen to have Carl a time. I think I was maybe 30, halfway through my career, where I come out to LA Galaxy for a couple of
Oh,
weeks, and there was a possibility of me signing there, but it didn't quite work out for one or two reasons. But at the time, Landon Donovan was there.
okay.
Now, I didn't know Landon. I didn't know him as a person or a player, obviously. But when I went out there and I thought, you know what? He's a bloody good player, And so you get all these. There's a ton of good players. I like the technical player. I like the entertaining player. Thiago, for example, who's just signed at Liverpool from. I mean,
It's a
I could
dream.
watch him every minute of the day
Oh
because
yeah.
just the way he moves the ball around. But there's some wonderful players. Listen, we'll talk about Man United for a second. Scholes and Carrick, people like that. I mean,
Yeah.
these are idols for many people because the way they play the game. So
Those are I mean, growing up, I mean, obviously being in the United States, right? Like I can't have this like direct connection. Especially I don't come from like a football family. My dad was a baseball player. He's a
okay,
musical guy. Like he plays guitar and stuff like that. My dad was not. I mean, he's like I don't like soccer. I was like, all right, Dad, got it, thanks. And honestly, it wasn't until I was older where like the game became honestly it becomes better to watch, but also becomes more physical as well. And that was the point where he did it. That's when he's like, oh, this is okay. Yeah, I like this now. Oh, okay, Dad. Now that I shoulder check somebody, you're good with it. Cool. But so that's kind of my connection. I have none, so like I have to have my own, and it just came from basically my mom's best friend married a man from Ghana, and obviously he's a football fan, and so we're watching games and different things like that. I think it was the 2002 World Cup. So I was 7 years old or so, which is like the first year I started playing soccer. Um, and I just started watching. And my family's like has like French, so I was like, oh, Thierry. I started watching Thierry Henry, and I was like, oh, this
yeah,
guy is amazing.
yeah,
I watched the FA Cup. I think it was in 2003. It was Man United versus Arsenal. And I loved Thierry Henry, but then you had like the Man United front line. I think you had Van Nistelrooy still, but you had a young Rooney coming up as well, and I was just mesmerized, and I was like, oh, this is the team. Sorry, Arsenal, you had a chance because Thierry Henry, but it's United for me.
have you ever had the opportunity to go to a game in England?
I haven't. That's
Well,
very.
listen. You being obviously a Man United fan, I've been fortunate enough to go to Old Trafford to watch a game, and that will take your love for football to a different level.
I believe it.
Once fans are allowed back in, and you get 75,000 there, and they're having a good day, and honestly, the hairs on the back of your neck is it's an emotional occasion. Listen, like all your sports in America, obviously, massive fan base
Yeah.
in every field. Um, and when you get engrossed in that sport, it can really like raise a hair on your neck, and you'd love it. You'd absolutely love going
Uh,
to Old Trafford one
I
day.
can't wait. I mean, one of the funnier experiences, the Columbus Crew, which is in the MLS with like the LA Galaxy,
Yeah,
they're pretty
yeah.
close. By they're the closest professional team to me. So
They
uh,
just won, didn't they? They just won the MLS Cup, did
yeah,
they not?
I think they did. Yeah, they did
They did.
actually. Yep. And so we were going to a game, and it was a preseason game. Well, I think it wasn't their preseason, but it was like English Premier League's their preseason, and Newcastle was there. This was quite a few years ago, and so I was like, I want to be with the Newcastle supporters because they were gonna take over their own section, just kind of the way they do. So we
Yeah.
we actually painted our bodies like had the white and black stripes, and I got stopped by a guy, and he started quizzing me. At first, he started talking to my buddy, And I was like, no, 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 don't talk to him. And so I had to answer a question, and I just started like talking about like a couple transfers that they had just made, and they're like, oh yeah, come in. And then the rest of the time, it was just like, it was completely like offbeat, but like just singing and bouncing and just like, I mean, it was just like love and all kinds of things. It was like, and that was just like this small little like microcosm of what it is there. And I'm like, oh, if this is what they can like do in the United States, just
Yeah.
imagine if if you're part of 75,000 people in England, like during a game, like it gives
Well,
me goosebumps thinking about it.
people, like the Newcastle fans. With Manchester, you've got obviously Man City, you've got Man United,
Yeah.
you've got one or two other teams that are quite local. In Newcastle, they only have
Yep.
Newcastle, and they are as fanatical bunch of fans as you'll come across. So they're probably a good bunch to mingle with when they come over on pre-season because they know how to have a good time in Newcastle.
Oh, for sure. And
That's for sure.
one of my good buddies, he's from Newcastle, and he's a Newcastle fan, true and true. So got to know them even more. Moving on a little bit. Obviously, you talked about your first little taste of it. Shrewsbury Town,
Yeah,
obviously, is where you go. I think you went on loan. I believe you went on loan first, came back,
that's right. Yeah.
and then that's kind of where you really started your career. What was that like? Just kind of like, obviously you had the bitter. It's kind of a little bittersweet leaving West Ham, wanting to play, but did you kind of just feel like, all right, I've made it, or did you already have that feeling when you signed that contract at West Ham?
No, I listen. When I signed for West Ham, I knew that was sort of one little step in the right direction.
Right.
But you know, when you get and it's very very different nowadays, I must add. But when I first signed for West Ham, it, you know, my wages were my salary was probably just enough for my uh, petrol money and enough to get me to and from work. I was living at home, so we're talking no money. It was just the prestige of becoming a professional
Right.
footballer, um, and obviously the target was to get into West Ham's first team, and and it proved a difficult task. We had some very very good players at the club in that era, and then the opportunity. And I'll tell you about the opportunity. So I went into training on the Monday morning, and Harry Redknapp was the manager at the time, and um, he said to me, there might be a possibility for you to go out on loan. So I was like, okay, no problem. I was 18, 19. I want to play. So he said, all right, leave it with me. So I went back in on the Tuesday morning to training, and he had me in the office, and he said, right, there's a chance for you to go to Shrewsbury. I went, all right, no problem. I'll do it. Spoke to the Shrewsbury manager, and all the paperwork got faxed to him from the clubs. Signed the paperwork. I got straight in my car. I had to go home, quickly get a couple of bits of clothing, and this is Tuesday morning. And then I was driving to Shrewsbury. They had a game that night, and I was making my debut that night. So I'm driving up the motorway. I don't know where Shrewsbury is. Uh, and obviously there's no sat nav or nothing like that. So I've got one of these giant maps in my car, and I'm sort of marked out on the map how to get there. And I eventually get there, and I meet the manager, and you're talking. I mean, over here, teams normally meet an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes before the kickoff. So I've walked in the change room maybe an hour and 45 minutes before the game. Don't know anyone. Probably half of the players didn't know that they'd sign me on loan either because there was no social media. So they're probably
Right.
thinking, who's this kid here?
Does he want an
And
autograph?
yeah, he's a mascot.
Yeah.
So I walked in the change room. I dropped my kit bag down and I sit there and he names the team and I'm in the team. And we was playing against Swansea, and it's Swansea is just on the sort of obviously in Wales, so it's
Yep.
on the other side of the line for the border for England. So it's a bit of a, I wouldn't say it's a derby, but it's a bit of a spicy game. And we end up winning the game. And did we win? Oh, we might have drew 2-2, tell a lie. And I scored on my debut. And like I say, that's the bug. And once I'd got that bug and that feeling, I never wanted to let go of it. So when I did eventually go back to West Ham, I was I'd had my spell at Shrewsbury, and then I'd been given the opportunity of a new contract at West Ham. Um, I think I went out on loan to Leighton Orient as well,
Yep.
and I played a bit of football there. And then and like I said to you earlier, it was looking at if I signed another 2 year deal at West Ham, am I going to get a chance, or do I? By now, Shrewsbury had made an offer for me to buy me, and I thought if I go to Shrewsbury and play well, I'll get a chance to bounce back up the leagues, or do I stay at West Ham, and who knows when my opportunity is going to come round. So me being confident and wanting to play as much as I wanted to play, I took the opportunity to go to Shrewsbury, thinking, yeah, confident, cocky little 18, 19-year-old, come sign for Shrewsbury, play well, and I'll just jump back up the leagues, no problem. Obviously, it doesn't quite work like that, but, you know, I took that chance and then started my career, and then I was off and running.
I mean, I think that's obviously it doesn't quite work in the way that like at 18 you think exactly it's going to work, right? You're here and then boom, you're right back. But like what it is you just bet on yourself, right? And I think like if more people just did that and just bet on themselves, like that's kind of where you have that success is like taking that risk cuz what you did was a risk, right? Like I think you talked about like the academy players now, they're in this bubble. They're in this safe little bubble in the academy, in these Premier League academies. It's a risk to go play down levels and different things like that. But like if you bet on yourself, then like I think more often than not, that's kind of when the success happens. Is when you're willing to
But
take that risk.
but you know what as well, Carl? If I fast forward the clock to my management time,
Yeah.
and I have a million agents on the phone telling me that I've got this player and that player and blah 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 blah, and I'll send you his CV and have a look at this and have a and you get some of these agents, and I understand the game, but you get some of these agents that will send you this player, and he's been at Arsenal, he's been at Tottenham for 12 years, and you look at it and you go, he ain't played no games.
Yeah.
So what do you mean he's been at
Yeah.
Arsenal for 12 years? He was there from when he was 8 to 20, right? And he's played no football, so that kind of means nothing to me.
Right.
But you might get the player that comes through that's 21, and he's been at maybe a lower level, or he's maybe played in non-league. But at 21, he's played 100 games. Now, me as a manager looking at that, I'm going, well, he's got some experience of playing. His understanding of the game will be better. Might not have the ability or the attributes of the Arsenal kid, but here's a guy that has played and has a better understanding of it. So it's kind of I will always now I'm a manager, look at the player that wants to back himself, wants to play as often as he can. So I'll give you another example. I could have two players at the club when I'm the manager. One of them is constantly knocking on my door. Daz, I want to play. Like, if you're not going to pick me, can I go out on loan? Or I have the other player that sits in the change room, goes to training every day, and then I don't pick him at the weekend, but he never knocks on my door.
Right.
Now, I'd rather the player that knocks on my door every day and says, Daz, I want to play. I want to play football. And if you're not going to pick me, can I go on loan? That's the player that I want, because that's the player with the desire and the hunger inside them to want to play football, not the one that just wants to enjoy the ride and sit back and let month after month go by of no games. I enjoy training and it's good to be around the lads, but
Yeah.
I'm quite happy. That's not the one for me.
Yeah.
And that ultimately was probably the core feelings behind my decisions as a kid, that opportunity to go and play, I want to go and play. And they're the players that I like.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously you had a long career, but you never know how long your career is going to be. So you might as well, like, if you're going to have it, you might as well play as much as you possibly can, right? Like, these, like, an injury could happen at any point that could end it. And, like, do you want that injury to happen? Like, obviously you don't want to think that negatively, but, like, do you want that injury to happen your first game playing, or like, hey, I played a lot of games. At least I can say that I played as much as I possibly can, and I'm gonna ride this thing till the wheels fall off, basically. And
And Carl, you know from your experience, you was telling me that you suffered an injury
yeah,
that stopped you playing. Now, again, I won't go into it too deep, but at the end of the day, like once you get to whatever level, and some of these guys are millionaires and they've got
yeah,
all this money in the bank, they're playing and at top level and all that. But we've all come from the same place that you came from and I came from. That when we was a kid, all we ever wanted to do was play football.
yeah,
So don't ever lose that person inside you. Even if you played 300 Premier League games and you've got 10 million in the bank, don't lose that you had at the very start, which is ultimately, I just want to play football.
yeah.
And I never, ever, and I never will lose that. I still want to play now. I'm 46 years old. I'm too old to play, but I would rewind the clock and start again in a heartbeat because I'd still got that little boy in me that ultimately just wants to play football.
Yeah, I mean, like that's me. Is like I get so excited. We do like just pickup, right? Like we play pickup games or whatever it is. Like we just
What is
organize.
pickup games? That's a term I'm not familiar with.
So basically, we get into a group chat. We'll say, hey, do you guys want to go play? We'll throw down some like it's like small sided, like maybe like not necessarily five aside because it might be more than that, but like a five aside game. And so we'll get into
Right,
a group chat. Say, hey, do you guys want to play? We'll show up, and luckily we're coaches, so we have pennies and those and cones and like pug nets, and we just throw it down and we'll go play. And that's some of the most fun that I've ever had is just like
right,
being with my and like that's where like a lot of my development and different things came from was just playing that kind of stuff, playing games, just like outside with friends, just like getting a group together and going playing and different things like that. And like so, I have that. We do another thing that it's called men's league here. I think it would probably be the best way to equate it would be like Sunday league. Um, obviously it's Sunday league, but without like it. I get technically a Sunday league could rise up. Our men's league team is just like you can win your league, and that's kind of it. Like that's the thing, and
right.
so
Okay.
um, like that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean really that much, and like as far as you're not gonna go anywhere with it, but it's like I live for it. If I could play every single day, like I don't care if it's after work, before work, I'll do it. And I'm someone that yeah, exact right.
Me too.
I hate working out. I don't love going to the gym, but you ask me to go play, I will do that from
Yeah.
sun up to sundown. It's and and
Same, mate.
that's the beauty of
Absolute
it.
same for me.
And
Yeah. I
so that's awesome to hear that like you still have that even having as long of a career as you did like that you still have that love because you don't want to lose that, right? Like that's we talked about that a little bit, right? Like it's just like
and do you know what, Carl? You'd be surprised, right? That not everyone has that.
yeah,
I speak to a number of ex teammates and friends within the game, and I'll say, God, do you miss playing? And you'll be surprised how many people say, Nah, not really. And they say to me, Why do you, Dal? And I went, Absolutely. Every single minute of every day I miss playing. And they're like, Really? I mean, obviously, being a manager and being the boss, I was fortunate enough that we could put on training sessions once in a while that I could join in
yeah,
because I still wanted to play. And sometimes we might do training sessions that. I mean, I was a winger, so I was someone who crossed the ball a lot. So sometimes when we're doing crossing drills and whatever, I would join in because sometimes you can talk to players, you can show non-tactic sports, but sometimes the best way is to actually do a demonstration, and I would enjoy joining in. So if ever there was a chance or there was an odd number in training and we needed a spare body, I'm playing, I'm in.
uh, uh, I'm the same way. Like and like the kids will laugh. Like we'll do stuff, but like all the time. If there's like an opportunity, like oh we need an extra number, great. Penny is on. I'm playing. Like let's go. I don't care. I'm gonna play. Um, the one, I guess, like obviously, with such a passion for playing and for the game, do you do you feel yourself getting the same like spark and same like um, energy from coaching that you got from playing?
I do, yeah, because I mean, it's a very fine line. There is nothing like landing on the ball, producing a little bit of magic that creates a goal or
Yeah,
scores the goal or winning the game. That feeling with your teammates after. I mean, they're priceless. But the nearest thing to it when you coach and you manage is obviously you ain't got the ball at your feet and you can't impact the game directly yourself.
right.
But what you can do is you can give them some tactical information, or you can give individuals that technical information that once you've worked Monday to Friday on certain things, and then that plays out in the game, and you obviously go on and win. That's a nice feeling as well
For sure.
because it's irrespective of whether it's a young player or a senior player, if you've given some good information, some good detailed um, tactical information, and that plays out in the game, and you go on and win the game, yeah, I love it. I love it, and I also buzz off of the fact that I like seeing I like seeing people happy
Yeah.
with their football. So I can stand there proud as punch as the manager and see all my players high fiving and fist bumping and that, yeah, let's get the music on and that fit, and I'm like, oh, you deserve that. And I like that because the way I feel about football, I need to I need that happiness within my group when I'm managing the team. So when I see that, that's the next best feeling. So yeah, listen, but then it goes the other way because I can be really hard on myself and not so much hard on the team because that's not my style,
Yeah.
but I can be hard on myself if we haven't got the result or one or two things didn't quite go to plan in the game. But ultimately, it's because of how much I care about it.
Absolutely. No, that's. I think. I think that that's one of the biggest things that kind of like shines through. Like that's kind of what gets to the players, right? Like if no matter what, like if you're kind of um, if they know you mean everything you're saying and like that
Mm.
you're like you care about it and like you're coming from the right place, typically you see the players react
Yeah.
strongly and it usually works out. So with the coaching aspect, how do you view it? Do you have you kind of obviously obviously you've put a lot of thought into it. You played a lot of the games and different things. But is there a set way or a set philosophy that you have when it comes to playing, or is it more of like a situational thing when it comes to the team you have and the or maybe just the game that you're playing that week? Is it more set or is it more situational for you?
I think you have to be flexible.
Yeah,
I really do because if I give you an example of let's say, sorry, I keep getting notifications.
you're
If
right.
I give you an example of the Premier League where every team by and large is trying to play the same way, but you've got the best play it the best, and then the others don't play it so well, although they're trying to do the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
So most games in the Premier League are good football matches, but your Man Cities, Man Uniteds, Liverpools, they play at a better level, so they win more.
right.
When you get to certainly the level I was managing at with Barnet, um, you get many different styles of football. So you get the team that wants to pass, you get the team that want to crash it from back to front, you get the teams that want to play for set pieces. So as much as you have this my philosophy won't change in terms of how I want my team to play,
Right.
but you have to be flexible in respect of sometimes the opponent because it's you in the space of a week you can have a really good football match on that Saturday. Then on Tuesday night you're playing against a team where everyone's 6'3" and they just want to launch it, and then the following Saturday is the team that want to go back to front and play for set pieces. So as much as my core value and my core philosophy with my team is possession based. You have to be mindful and flexible with
Right.
the opponent. And sometimes, because of the level I'm at, you have to take the pitch into consideration as well. So Premier League, every pitch is like a carpet, it's like a pool table.
Yeah.
But at our level, you can have a carpet one week and then a bloody cheese grater the next week, and the ball don't even run flat.
Yeah.
So these are all the things that these are all the slightly different challenges that you might face at that maybe the lower down the pyramid you go. But my core value will never change. I like to dominate the ball. I like I like good decision makers, because if you ask some people what good decision makers are, and what is a simple pass, for example, a lot of people say, excuse me, yeah, just that little 10-yard pass. But sometimes that's the right decision. Sometimes that's not necessarily the right decision. So I might say to my central defenders, yes, I want you to play out from the back and I want you to start our attacks. But what if the first five decisions you've got to make, you've actually just got to put your foot through the back of the ball and clear it because we're under the cosh?
Right.
So that's still good decision making. So the more good decisions you make, the better the player you are. So I try to create that with my players. I try to give them scenarios within training sessions, and then you obviously top it up with the analysis. Um, excuse me, to sort of reinforce my beliefs, and the players' attributes, the players' qualities. Show them loads of footage of good play, loads of footage of play that they maybe could have done better. So even when I'm talking about things that would be deemed a negative, it's about putting that positive spin on it, because that's how I am as a person
Yeah.
anyway. I would never just turn around and say to someone that ain't good enough, and you know, because I think that's empty. I think you've
Yeah.
got to, if you're going to tell someone they're not doing well, you've got to give them detail, you've got to give them reason, you've got to give them understanding, so that then they can then go and try and make a difference. So, but ultimately, philosophy for me, if I was to write a coaching manual, I could write one 100 pages thick, or I could write a coaching manual that comes from my heart, which basically says, don't give the ball away. I don't like, I like to dominate the ball. Don't give the ball away.
Right.
Every time you land on the ball, you've got 10 options. Now, obviously, the keeper's one of them, but keepers nowadays use their feet more than their hands.
Yeah.
So I would write from my heart, Darren Currie's coaching manual, don't give the ball away. The end. That would be it.
Now, so we kind of talked about it, like when you're as a coach, you're looking for players that have played the games and different things like that. Is that a big reason why? Because I think if you haven't played those games, you haven't had to make those decisions and you haven't been put in multiple different scenarios. But when you've played all these games, you've kind of gone through those situations, you've played through the scenarios. Is that kind of one of the bigger reasons? Is like usually with more experience just comes better decision making just from having done it.
The coach is the best. The game is the best coach.
Yeah.
The game teaches you more than anything I'll teach you. In my opinion, Guardiola's the best, and he could teach you so much about the game.
Yeah.
But the game will be the best. Can be the best coach. Now, if you're centre forward, I'll give you an example, and it don't matter who your manager is. It could be me, Guardiola, Klopp. It could be anyone. If you're a centre forward, and every time you land on the ball and you turn without looking, and a centre half goes bosh and hits you 6 foot up in the air, and then the next time you get it, you turn without looking again, and the centre half does it again. It don't matter what your manager's saying. In your head, you should be going, next time I'm going to look,
Yeah.
because he keeps lumping me up in the air. And then the next time you do look and he comes steaming in and you skip past him, well, the game's taught you that.
Yeah.
The game has taught you that you got to be a bit smarter. You got to look what I'm doing. So as much as you get a lot of, you can get so much from coaches with detail and tactical information. the game is the best coach for me. So the only way to get that from the game is play as often as you can, because you'll learn so much.
I think that's obviously it's good advice for you're talking about professional level players. It's the same advice I give to my youth players, right? Like, um, play as much as you can. Like that's where the development comes from, right? Like it's I can teach you a lot of things, and there's a lot I have to learn as well. But like, and the same thing as coaching, right? Like you learn from doing it. You learn from being in it and just participating. And the more you participate, usually the more you learn. As long as you're willing to accept like when you lose, like, all right, be mad about it. I know I get mad about it because I'm super competitive and like I hate losing more than I like winning. But at the end of the day, after I throw my like internal fit that I usually do, that I lost and I didn't figure it out, like it's decompress. All right, figure it out. Why did this go wrong? And let's fix it. And and it was the same way as a player, right? Like I was extremely fiery, right? Like I was mad, and different things like that when things didn't go right. But it was like, all right, sitting down late at night, thinking about it, right? And that's what you do. If you can take those lumps and take those losses and just like learn from it, kind of like you said, like a forward, right? If you get bopped twice by a center back, and it's gonna hurt, right? If you don't learn from that, like then you got to reevaluate things for sure. Um, so what
But
I
I
want to
think that I
go ahead.
think that goes across the I think that goes across the board. Like you say, the way I'm talking now is not just for senior players, not just for professional players. This is for footballers from all age groups. You've got to play as often as you can.
Yeah.
They talk about 10 hours a day, and they talk about 10,000 touches, or what? Sorry, not 10 hours a day, um, but 10,000 touches and what have you. That if you want it that badly, and you get an opportunity to go and practice, and then you get an opportunity to play, like I say, I couldn't stress enough how important it is to play as often as you can, because that's where I look back to my childhood when, like I say to you, I get home from school, quick snack. Mum and dad probably wanted me to do homework. That was the last thing on my mind. I wanted to get up, get some shorts on, get my boots on, go and meet up with the boys and play football for 5 hours.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Until the sun goes down. And I probably done that every day from maybe 5 to bloody 15, 14, whatever it might be, until I was in academies. And I probably learned most of what I eventually done when I played as a pro, knocking about with my mates. You got a big man, like I say to you, if I play with a load of kids that are half my age, what am I going to learn from that? Because
Yeah.
I can skip round them. If I play with all the big boys,
Yep.
I might learn how to protect the ball a bit more, because he keeps wanting to take it off me, and I learn how to keep him the furthest from the ball. So I used to have it with my own son. My missus would go, "Oh, he's outside playing with the big kids and they're kicking him." I said, "That's all right. He'll learn, won't he? He'll either learn to not get kicked or be better with the ball so he don't get kicked."
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, play. Listen, that would be my message. Play as much as you can.
So that is extremely good advice, especially for the players. Now, what is one thing? And obviously, you're still pretty young within your coaching career. But what's one piece of advice you can give to any coach, whether it's probably the ones that are kind of just starting out pretty early into their coaching career?
There's a couple of things. I mean, I always think feedback from players is really important. And you have to be sort of big enough to accept what you hear in return. I'll give you an example. I used to go into the change room at half time and at full time, and the first thing that I would say to the players was, "Come on in, you tell me, because you're out there playing and I'm watching, which is two very different things. So give me your feedback."
Yep.
Now, what you can't be is a coach that says, "Right, give me some feedback," and then three of your players go, "Yeah, boss, we did this and we did that," and then straight away you go, "No, you're wrong," and "No, you're wrong," and "No, you're wrong." Because if you do that, next time you throw it out there and ask them, you just get a load of players that go like that,
Yeah.
and they'll never want to speak up because they're in front of their teammates, and they'll never want to speak up. So if you want to throw it out there like I used to, and I will continue with that because I think it was invaluable. Whatever they say, you have to be prepared to accept. They might say, "We didn't. Our tactics were wrong today, or whatever." Who knows what they're going to say?
Right.
They've just played the game. So feedback is important, and you have to use it to your advantage, even if it's not necessarily what you want to hear.
Right.
I think the best coaches that I've worked under are the best at delivering, because we all have a million football ideas in our head and scenarios and beautiful pictures of how the game should be played. But the best coaches that I've worked for are the ones that can deliver all that information in their head, can deliver it into the team in majority of the time the most simple way
Right.
to make players understand. Because especially when you find someone who's played football and has got some really good ideas, but if they can't translate it into the team, what value is it really? So, you've probably got some great ideas about how you see the game, Carl, like I do, but it's how you translate that into them, whether it be on a tactics board, whether it be on the graphs, whether it just be in one-to-one meetings, or unit meetings, team meetings, however you choose to translate that, that for me is the key. Because so that a player turns around and goes, Gaffer, I know what you're on about there. Yeah,
Yep.
I get that. And then they go and do it. And then that's good coaching.
Yep.
You might not have it. We might be sitting opposite each other in my office. We ain't even kicked a ball yet, but straight away, he's understanding what I'm saying. And then he goes and takes it out on the grass. That's good coaching, that.
No, it's all about messaging, right? It's actually funny. It's something I've been taught. Like we do evals, right? Like evaluations, like season evaluation, mid-season evaluations. That's what we're at. And so, like with my 2004 girls who are all 16, that's what I've been talking about. Is like communicating with each other, right? And obviously this goes for me and different things like that. But I was like, it's not always about what you're saying. What you're saying matters, but it's about the way that you're saying it to them that's going to either make them want to listen to you or make them not want to listen to you. And if you can provide a message and use the proper wording around that message, you'll get through to just about anybody. You can bring anybody in and they'll listen as long as you're very, you're very smart about the way that you deliver that kind of message to somebody. Otherwise, can go the complete opposite way where they're just like, nah, I'm good. And it's same thing with the play. It's same thing with us as coaches, right? Like if we may have something good to say that's really valuable that can really help them, but if our message is too wordy or if our message is just seems like it's just attacking them too much to them, because let's be honest, we know this as athletes, there's a lot of ego involved, and if you take a shot at somebody's ego, or at least they feel like that, it's pretty easy for them to just kind of like buck you off and just yeah we're good. Um, so
And going on from that, Carl, right? So I'm quite big on terminology.
yep.
Because of, like you say, if it's too long-winded as well, the message can get lost and what
Yep.
have you. And there's certain things. So, for example, if you're a defender, and I said to you, like, long ball, put it in the channel or whatever. Some people would take that as, I don't want to play football, I'm just a long ball man.
Right.
But if I said to you, when you land on the ball, I want a long pass, but I want it to land in that area, because then he's going to make that run, and all of a sudden that long ball wording becomes long pass. Now,
Yeah.
some people might think he wants us to pass, he wants us to play,
Yep.
but everyone might think that passing is over short distances.
Yep.
But some of the best players in the world, Paul Scholes and Michael Capp, their passing is over between 10 and bloody 80 yards. So So it's about terminology. Is it long ball or is it long pass? You say long pass, a lot of people might buy into it. You say long ball, and people go, "Oh, it just wants us to bang it up
Yeah.
there." Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So there's an example of that. In training, I ban everyone from using the word unlucky. I don't like the word because what I say to them, rightly or wrongly, but it's my way of doing it. So what you're saying is, when he had that shot and it went into the car park, he was unlucky. So if he'd have shot and it had gone in the goal, are you telling me that was lucky then? Do you know what I mean? So if he misses, he's unlucky. But if he scores, what? He's lucky. That's the opposite.
Yeah.
So I'd rather say, change the wording around. You missed the target. Talk about your technique, or listen, your approach to the ball, your technique. You was leaning back. I see what you tried to do, but you didn't execute it.
Yeah.
But not unlucky, because, like I say, ultimately it means if he'd have scored, well, he's just lucky
that's a
then.
that's a good point. That is a good point. Um, obviously, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I've already appreciated the conversation, but
I'm in the flow now.
yeah, if you're up for it though, what I have for you, I have five, and this is something I'm bringing back, and I thought this is a perfect guest to do it. I something I like just in my personal life. I like trivia. Um,
Okay.
I have a lot of useless knowledge, and it only is relevant when I'm playing trivia. So I like to just translate that here. So I have five trivia questions that have to do with you or the teams that you played around or people
Right.
around
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Only five. So if you're up for it, I got some trivia
Go for it.
questions.
Go for it.
All right.
See if I can remember.
This one should be an easy one. What nickname was given to your uncle by the Sheffield United fans? There's two answers, but I'll take either one of them.
Oh, that is a good one.
Yeah.
You actually maybe know something that I don't.
To be fair, it's research and googling. I'm not gonna lie to you, but
No, listen, fair play to you. I should know that. Um, this would just be a guess because I really don't know, Carl. You've got me on the first question. I'll say God, maybe.
to be fair, I imagine a lot of them have said that, and I think, but I think you do know it. I think you're just overthinking it. But the two would just be TC, which which
Oh, okay,
TC
okay,
or Top Cat.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, we all still call him TC now, to be fair.
exactly,
So fair enough,
Yep.
fair enough.
So just a little. All that was a little overthinking it. Though
No, probably. Listen, he's idolised up
I was
there,
just
so
I was gonna say from what I've seen, I imagine a few Sheffield United fans call him God. So
yeah. So,
so you're
well,
probably
we
not
do in the family.
you're not too wrong. So in your this one's gonna be a little harder. This one's a stat one. So it's probably more of a guess. I know. In your career, out of all the teams you played for, which team do you think you had the best goal and assist per 90 average?
Ooh.
I'll give you a little hint because it's a hard one. It's a team you didn't play a lot of games for.
Oh, that's interesting because I would have said it would have been between Wickham and Barnet, having been there.
You definitely scored the most and assisted the most there, but you just played a lot more games. So that's with this you didn't play as many games, and that's kind of why it's the best one. Not by much either.
I'd have to say Ipswich then.
Close. Ipswich was close. It was actually Brighton.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It was Brighton.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know, and I was I imagine you weren't gonna guess that just because you didn't. It was one of. I mean, you didn't play there very long, obviously.
No,
Um,
I got sold pretty quickly after signing there. To be
uh,
fair.
well, there's good reason you did quite well.
No, no, it was a positive. It wasn't. I wasn't doing anything wrong.
No, yeah, you did well.
Okay. Okay.
All
That's a
right.
good one. I
So
like that one.
next one, what was the score of the game when you scored Barnett's goal of the season against Swansea? I know these are hard. These are a little hard.
No, I'm trying to remember because I'm sure that result put us top of the league. I think we won 2-1.
It was a great finish. Left footed,
Yeah.
drove right into the bottom right corner.
Yeah, 2-1, I think it was.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yes,
2-1.
finally.
We're on the board. All right.
Good.
Let's see. So you could still win, right? You can still get more right than you get wrong. Number 4. Who did you beat 4-1 in the first round of the FA Cup in 03-04, and you scored a free kick and another goal?
Who was I playing for? Have I got to
Who
guess
who
that
were
as
you
well?
playing against? You scored 2 goals against them. And you beat them 4-1. Oh, who were you playing for? I believe
Wickham.
I believe Wickham. Well, 03-04. Might have been Ips.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wickham. Okay.
Yeah, I think we beat Swindon.
You did beat Swindon.
Yeah.
See, now that you're
Yeah.
not overthinking it,
I'm
you're
getting
you're
there.
you're on a
I'm
roll
getting
now.
there.
Just like with the conversation, you're on a roll. All right, last
You've
question.
opened up my memory bank now, so
Th-
I'm up and running.
This one's gonna be a little tougher. This one's more recent though. This one's as a manager.
Okay.
Um, who won the penalty in Barnett's 1-0 win over Sheffield United in the FA
Oh,
Cup?
easy. Come on, Ephron Mason Clark.
All right, there it
Yes,
is.
it
Look
is.
at that. Three out of five. That's not too bad. And honestly,
No.
the first one, you probably could have had. You just overthought it.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
The
That's
second,
probably not going to go down well with the family.
well, how can it not go down well? You gave out God, so right, like that's a better one
Yeah.
than the actual one that I gave. So I
Yeah.
think it
True. True.
I think it's very good. The last thing I guess before we get out of here, I think anybody that's watched your career or follows you or anything like that, I guess the best question to ask is what's next for you, or what do you see in the future for you, in terms of coaching?
Listen, I have the same aspirations, Carl, that I had as a player. You know, you start your journey obviously my playing journey from a very small boy, and the target was to be a professional player and get to the top. And I very very nearly got to the Premier League, but wasn't quite to be. And it's the same as a manager. You know, I've had my first 18 months now as a manager. Um, Left Barnet because different ideas with the chairman.
Yeah.
Um, and now I've been out of work for 4 months, but desperate for the phone call that gets me back into the game, because I'm highly ambitious and want to get as high as I can. I have aspirations to get to the top like I did as a player, so that's the target. But at the minute, I'm just waiting for that call and the next opportunity for me to get back in.
Well, I look forward to seeing where that next opportunity is, and obviously it's not as easy to watch some of those games here, but it can be done. Trust me. Over quarantine, I found a way to watch the most obscure of games. So I'm sure I'll be able to watch you somehow pretty soon here. So um, I appreciate it greatly. Obviously, it's been a phenomenal conversation. Just you giving me your time and just sitting down for, I think, a little bit over an hour or so. It's been a pleasure. Learned a lot, and I'm really excited, like I said, to see what happens next, and hopefully to continue this. And hopefully this isn't the last time we have a chat for sure.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you touching base with me and us having this conversation as well. It's just as much fun for me as well, Carl, because I love, like I said at the very start, didn't I? I love talking football,
Yeah.
and it always creates a really interesting discussion and debate football, because we all see it in many different ways. And listen, I would say to you, like I'd say to any coach, just enjoy it and let your sort of love for the game and how you feel about the game just be infectious to the people around you, because there's people everywhere in the world that loves this game.
Yep.
So, you know, I really appreciate you having me on and speaking to you guys. And if I give you one or two little things that you can take away from it, then great. I'll take something from it as well. So thanks very much for having me, mate.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely my pleasure. Like I said, can't wait for the next time we talk. Until then, this has been Tactical Foul. I'm Kyle Grew, Darren Currie. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good one. Peace.
Thank you.